Hello, gamers. What is up? What is good? And what the hell are we doing here? Top 10 anime of 2025 coming out in almost August of 2026. I have no excuse for this. I have no real explanation for this either. Besides the fact that I am a small YouTube channel, I am not beholden to anyone, so when the end of the year came and went and I did not get a chance to make this video, nobody called me out on it. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't miss out really on anything. And at the same time, this YouTube channel really is more of just like a personal media diary for me, as much as it is, any sort of thing for anyone else. And when it comes to, my interests and what I want to do, it was still bugging me that I had never recorded anything in this media diary of the anime that I watched in 2025. It was a really great year in anime, all sorts of things beyond these 10 series that I enjoyed. Many other things that I know I would have enjoyed, but I didn't get a chance to watch. Just the busyness of a working adult life, conflicting with such a time demanding hobby as watching seasonal anime. Doesn't always work out, but I think that's why it's almost more important for me to still spend time celebrating it and exploring it and discussing what I liked about it, as a way to kind of retain some traction and involvement and a feeling of emotional investment into this medium that I love so well, into this hobby that has given me so much over the years. So yeah, these are 10 series that I'm excited to talk about. One of them is underneath my face here. And let's plunge right ahead and talk about number 10. This adorable screenshot is from A Star Brighter Than the Sun. This is a real classic shoujo rom-com. It has all the beats that you would expect from that broad genre of series. But there's quite a lot of little modern touches to this. I've noticed that when I go back and read older shoujo rom-coms, there was less of a sense of kind of like, I don't know if I want to call it woke, but you might find somebody, the right type of chud would probably call it woke, where the characters are very, very kind and tolerant. Um, they're very like kind of proactively considerate and emotionally in tune with themselves and others. This is a fairly modern development in shojo. If you go back and watch old shoujo rom coms, the plot lines often involve like bullying, just dramatic misunderstanding, people assuming the worst of one another, really rancid, toxic vibes at times, which has an appeal of its own, especially in those cathartic moments where all of that nonsense is kind of sorted through and there's some sort of emotional epiphany that's reached and a character has some dramatic transformation or arc or whatever. Here, it really is that very modern style. Everyone is so kind. Everyone is so full of understanding. There's no villain characters. There's no subterfuge. There's no forced drama. It's all so upbeat. It feels very, very refreshing. And the MC embarks on this journey of self compassion, where she has complexes that aren't being drummed into her by external villains, but instead are just this kind of journey of discovering how to love herself, the qualities that she has that she needs to appreciate, the qualities that make her worthy of love, from other people as well. Love that she is in many ways already receiving. And I found that really wonderful and really resonant, not just, with myself, although her situation does mirror mine in many ways. She has a complex about being very tall, about having a big appetite. These are things that are true of me as well. But similarly to her, there was really no villains in my life. Everybody liked me. Everybody was ready for me to like myself as well. And I think that's true of a lot of people. I think for a lot of people, it's less about trying to avoid those that hate you and instead removing the self that hates you, and receiving the love that's already there. Lots of really, really fun production tricks too. The series isn't like mind-boggling Shaft style, true experimental, abstract sort of stuff, but in this very comfy, warm, familiar vibe, there's all these little flourishes that whenever there's like a transition or a cutaway, uh, inter scene title cards, moments of characters' imagination or whatever, like in the screenshot I just showed a second ago, they really flourish in coming up with very cute little things to add there. It's very charming. And most amazingly, and this really did stun me, they managed to progress through the story, through the relationship of the main characters, in a way that is like totally antithetical to your classic shoujo rom-com beats. In fact, it feels very deliberately subversive that they set up all the stakes for like a failure to launch, for something to go wrong and progress to be delayed, and then subvert it and push forward and have the characters be that much more bold, that much more creative, that much more willing to put themselves out there. And again, very refreshing, very exciting. All right, next at number 9, we're going to talk about Ruri Rocks. This is the brilliant production of Studio Bind, who his most notable works are Jobless Resurrection, which I've heard is one of the most horny isekai out there, which is saying a lot, and Onimai, the less of which is said, the better, perhaps, has now been putting their considerable production talents to much more wholesome shows. Ruri Rocks, and then this year they had Hanato Ashura, which I heard was fantastic. Would still love to check that out if I get the chance. Moving from the realm of purely perverse into what might be called just a perverse obsession with depiction, still having that same lush detail, still relishing in character acting and idyllic situations, but now without the R18 disclaimer. Yes, this shift from blatant perversion replaced by something that we could call a fetish for everything. Just such an obsessive interest in depicting everything with its most rich and deep qualities, which I really think is the fuel for a lot of our best anime just in general, from Miyazaki to Yuasa, two directors that I think really embody this philosophy. I really should have watched Flower and Ashura. There's so much good anime out there. I gotta get to it. Just gotta get into the habit of watching more stuff. So here, this is a educational special interest type show. You are learning about mineralogy in a variety of very, 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 very beautiful locations. I've been talking a lot today. I don't know why I tried to make this video today too. I had to present a bunch for work. I feel like my talking skills are burning out for the day. The presentation here cuts together a trifecta of fun imagination space diagrams that feel like they're right out of a geology textbook for kids, adventurous discovery scenes, that although, the stakes are pretty low, they're never really in any danger, still capture kind of this very fun, spirited outing vibe of going on a hike and packing supplies and working out a plan, and sometimes, stumbling, having to cross some perilous terrain. It does feel very adventurous. And then the comfy lab work scenes too. I think this is a real hallmark of anime like this, that they don't just show you the quote-unquote exciting stuff, the thrilling discovery of minerals and gems, but instead show you the complete package of, okay, now that we've got these samples, let's take them back to the lab and put them under the microscope and cross-reference our findings with other mineralogical surveys, and do the actual hard work of research behind all of the fun. So yeah, this is your classic interest-based cute girls doing cute things slice of life show. This used to be an omnipresent staple of a new season. We used to get like 5 of these per season. Now it is all too precious, all too scarce. It feels indeed like gemstones scattered in the summer stream. Okay. Now at number 8, we have this very exciting looking show. This is, of course, Dan Da Dan Season 2! This was the big crossover hit of 2024. Very exciting that just after a year, they ran it back with a big Season 2. At this point, I was a fan of the manga, and then I'm a huge fan of Science Saru, so I was rooting for Dan Da Dan Season 1's success. But now the success has, so much runaway momentum that I'm kind of now worried. How much of Science Saru's time is this going to eat up? How long is the manga going to run? Are they going to adapt all of it at this pace? Maybe we need a little flop here. Maybe we need a changing of gears. Just kidding. Science Saru actually is managing really nicely these longer shows that they have to keep returning to, alongside, more experimental, more exciting, well, not even more exciting, but, exciting, unexpected projects too. I do think, though, not that they need to speed things up necessarily, but they should kind of massage the structure of the manga more. Because here, I enjoyed the series a lot. Obviously, I enjoyed the season a lot. It made it onto this list. But I have to say that the overall structure of this season feels quite messy. Because we get, like, the second half of an arc, which, to be fair, I think originally it was meant to be a 2-core sort of thing, and then it ended up being, like, split core. So this little 6-month gap between the first half and the second half of one arc, you can't really fault them for. Then you got some more kind of fun slice of life stuff that sets up a variety of future arcs. Then this like training digression, which they really went all out in animating, and it's just an awesome excuse to have a ton of fight scenes and really crazy high octane action. But it really does feel like a digression that just kind of eats up 2 episodes. And then we just get, like, kind of the first half of the next arc. It's kind of complete in and of itself, but it ends on just this very strange cliffhanger. Whereas, a lot of other kind of major beats in this arc had been set up, but not really fully executed yet. It's just a little messy, and I feel like when they're thinking about this, there's kind of this feeling of, it doesn't matter, we just have to do justice to the manga. Everything will take as long as it takes. We shouldn't skip anything. We shouldn't reorder anything. Because ultimately, when it's a finished project, people could go back and watch the whole thing, and where there's a break between season 2 and 3 doesn't really matter. And that's true, but I feel kind of mixed about it, because I feel like it just sort of lowers the seasonal experience. I've been a seasonal anime watcher for like something absurd 18 years, I guess, something like that. Jesus Christ. I've been watching seasonal anime for a long time, and I think having these sort of season-long chunks of enjoyment is kind of the way I remember anime best. That's the lasting impression it makes on me, is what was the experience I had watching it week by week for that season. But I think I'm probably in the minority, so like it makes sense that they don't cater to me and that they're thinking about other timelines when it comes to structuring. But it is what it is. I think you can just have the best of both worlds, but it would probably involve, yeah, some sort of trimming, some sort of rearranging, something. But, you know, what I can give unilateral, unqualified praise for is big action on an unprecedented scale, which we got in spades in this arc. There was, you know, as I was reading the manga, which I did pretty soon after I started watching the anime, I just realized how much I enjoyed the series and decided I would just get caught up on the manga ASAP. And I can remember the robot versus kaiju fight was like one of those first moments where I realized just how amazing the anime was going to be. That we were going to eventually get all of these scenes, feeling so excited to see them animated. And here at last it is. And we got to see Kinta. I love Kinta as a character. He's so funny. Such a great addition to their crew. Such a... Again, I keep saying that the series really feels inspired by Takahashi. And Takahashi loves these types of gag characters that are, in their own way, very, very charming, very, very likable. But more in terms of we just like seeing them. You're just happy and excited for him to show up because you know it's going to be funny. And then there's no real effort made to make him, you know, likable as a human being. He remains very much like a gag character. He remains, you know, very extreme in his personality and his depiction. I love it. All right, next we have Child Soldier Show of sorts. This is season 3 of Spy Family. This is kind of similar to Dan. This is another major manga being adapted by a major studio, where I feel a little bit of tension in between what I want from manga and what I want from anime. The manga is so good and so comfortable. It has so many modes it can operate in, so many characters, so many different ways for the main plot lines to progress, that it can just kind of meander with all these different arcs that can feel very significant, obviously be very, very entertaining, can definitely make progress in the zones of like character relations or the main Operation Strix scheme or Anya collecting merits at school or other characters getting fleshed out and more introduced. So not inconsequential, not just spinning their tires, but it can just go on and on and on with so many of those things, and having things be more episodic, having just pure comedy moments, you know, really detailing some of the more action, high stakes thriller parts of it too can just be expounded on for a long time. You know, they can really draw out those action scenes. And that's great. I wanted to run a long ass time. I love this series. That's what I want a lot of manga to be. I feel very content and very happy just reading a manga week in, week out for an indefinite period. But for an anime, I think it's not so unilaterally good. If you have an anime that kind of moves this way, it can start feeling very tonally imbalanced at times. If you're going to spend time just focusing on one aspect of the story, again, week by week in a manga, that's not so bad. But if you're watching episode after episode of it, it feels really different, especially when you know you've just got 12 episodes to work with and then it goes away for some unspecified period of time. It can start feeling a little more tedious, I think, as well. Just because anime runs slower than manga, you know? A manga chapter that feels kind of tedious, either way, it's over in like a few minutes and you go on with your day and you didn't really even have to pause and, you know, break out of doing other things to read it. It's extremely convenient in that regard. And then you just kind of start piling on this sense of exhaustion that now we're watching Spy Family episode, you know, 33 and it just starts to have kind of a heaviness that manga chapter 33 really does not. At the end of the day, I just do not want anime to run forever in most circumstances. This one I kind of want to run forever more than most, and even then I kind of feel like, well, I want Studio Wit to move on to other projects. I want Cloverworks to work on other projects. You know, like it doesn't need to just keep going as long as the manga goes. So I think this season does suffer from a lot of the same issues that season two had, issues that I just broke down as kind of symptomatic of this sort of adaptation in general. Mainly just the sense of imbalance between its three core modes. It's a gag comedy about silly kids. It's a spy versus assassin thriller action type thing, and it's this wholesome domestic found family slice of life series. Um, when you have a multi-episode arc that is just locked into one of those, I think it does create like a very sometimes exhausting tonal imbalance. But here, I think they do better than season two in two ways. One is just that some of the arcs that they cover, even if they are strictly in one of these modes, are just like very, very good. Some of the best arcs of the whole series, I think, are covered in this season. Like the flashback to when Lloyd is a kid, I think is really excellent, really moving, really intense. The info handoff crisis is kind of the spy espionage thriller aspect of the series at its very best. Great fight scenes, great action, great suspense, great sense of intrigue where it's kind of rare in the series that we care about the second order of like, you know, we care about Lloyd's plot because he's our boy, he's Lloyd. We don't really have the opportunity to care so much about the actual minutia of what he is trying to accomplish on some of his missions. But the info handoff crisis that occupies the last few episodes of the season, they give you enough to really invest yourself in it as a spy thriller and think about the consequences on that level, if that makes sense. Also, they've just had some arcs covered here where I think the series is at its very best, which is when it can bring in all of these three core elements. So something like the bus hijacking, which involves Anya in a major way. She's one of the kids being held hostage. It involves Lloyd trying to rectify the situation on his own angles. It involves kind of the domestic uncertainty between Lloyd and... Why can't I think of her name? What the hell? The babe. The mom. Why can't I think of her name? Am I stupid? Maybe I gotta take a break after this. Yeah, I'll take a break after this one. My brain is gone. But yeah, she gets her own arc in the story too. It's an arc that I think really covers all of the bases of what we love from this series. But yeah, I'll take a break. We'll finish this up later. And then yeah, they still find time for some episodic hijinks. I like especially that the series ends with just a little vignette of them going to the zoo. I think that was very smart because otherwise it ends with, you know, Lloyd battling for his life in the sewers beneath the city, which again is compelling and exciting, but really only one piece of the puzzle. Okay. I'll come back and do this later, and we will talk about this mysterious show. Waha. See ya. Alright, now let's talk about Taco P's Original Sin. In my seasonal anime review video of this, I called it a Despair Core series, as kind of the subgenre of 10 out of 10 I cried type series where the crying is not resulting from good things going bad or beautifully a bad thing becoming good, but just things staying bad the whole time. This is one of the most normie accessed despair core anime maybe ever. Even going outside of anime, normally things in this genre do not make the waves that Taco P did. And we cannot yet predict the second order consequences of this. Now, granted, when I made these slides, it was 2025, and now we're most of the way through 2026, which sounds terrifying to say, but it's true. Maybe we can remark a little bit on the second order consequences, which actually seem minimal. It seems like, generally speaking, people have kind of moved on from Taco P, which is fair because it's not like super long. You can watch it in an afternoon and have a pretty miserable time and then move on with your life. But I do imagine that there's quite a few people out there who are harboring some quiet devastation in the aftermath of this series. And it makes me really reflect and be happy that we never got a Poon Poon anime, because who knows what the hell that could have done to mainstream audiences were it to catch on. We got a Dead Dead Demons anime that was great, but we didn't get a Poon Poon anime. The more I reflect on this series, I think what really sticks with me, what I find myself still most surprised and excited about, is the production. Despite all the heaviness of the events contained within, I feel like the production itself is very alive with the spirit of Taco P, him as a character, his aesthetic, his way of being, this fluid, bouncy, expressive, dynamic style that is never content to just be any one thing for far too long. And at first it kind of seems like this is a juxtaposing type thing, where because it is so lively and animated, that when you get to the big gut shot stuff, the really devastating scenes and twists and sequences, that it makes them hit all the harder because you've been kind of lulled into a false sense of security that you understand what type of show this is. Oh, it's a goofy, silly comedy. But nah. I don't think, though. I don't think it's about that juxtaposition, about that sort of trick. I think it's something that's transcendent of that. I think it's just good. And the ending really sticks with me as well. Not to spoil too much, but you're left with just this little shred of hope, a tiny little scrap of hope in a really beautiful way. Alright, next, let's talk about the second season of the Ranma 1/2 remake. This is kind of a controversial remake. I find most of the discussion around it seems to be framed from the context of, like, what was wrong with the original. Is the very existence of this implying that there is something wrong with the 80s, 90s style of anime? Is it saying that newer audiences don't want to watch something old-fashioned? Blah, 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 blah. And to speedrun all of this discourse, no, I agree. I don't think this needs to be made. The old show is still great. I don't think it's strictly superior to the original either. I think the original has a lot of charm and character and all of the hallmarks of animation of that era, that this one, of course, moves in different directions. And I don't like that they de-China-fied it a little bit. Obviously, it's a very, very China-inspired series. A lot of manga and anime from that time period have kind of a China fixation, a fascination with China that was just reflective of Japan as a whole, having quite a bit of a China boom in cuisine and entertainment and stuff. Here, I think, very notably, though, they did de-Chinify it in subtle ways. Like, Ranma's outfits before were a lot more, like, Chinese-inspired. I think they had a cap. She had a cap in the original with, like, the red star on it and some overalls that just said China and stuff like that. And it's really telling that in 2026, or in 2025, they saw fit to remove those elements. To me, that really speaks to now a real xenophobia that has entrenched itself in Japanese culture, but alas. But seeing Mappa tackle all of this kung fu comedy of the original with the very modern Sakuga type tech, and then throwing in, like, all of these old school homages to the original, where It's like very clearly being done in a deliberately kind of retro style, which you could see as again just sort of like highlighting the fact that this doesn't need to be made or that the old one is still so great. But instead, I think just kind of gives this a very unique charm in that it's like both super fresh, super modern, seeking to differentiate itself from the original, and then making callbacks to the original while spotlighting the fact that they are callbacks, that this is kind of like a retro throw in spice, right? What a great way to revisit one of my favorite manga series of all time. In fact, the first favorite manga I ever had. As when I was getting into manga, I read this, I read Dragon Ball, I read the early Shonen Jump in America, which had, One Piece and Naruto and Bleach and, the big three, Yu Yu Hakusho. So there was kind of in my initial period of reading manga, maybe a dozen or so series that kind of occupied my early tastes, and Ranma was the first one that like stuck out to me as this is my favorite. In the second season, we really get into the meat of the series. More of the extended cast is introduced, the major plot elements, that the kind of overarching quest Ranma has to find the undo curse water that will prevent him from turning into a girl. Other kind of character traits like Ranma's fear of cats are established. We also kind of cement, at least temporarily, an understanding of the power ranking of all the characters, given that this is kind of a kung fu comedy. A lot of plot lines, although they may involve more sitcom-y elements of misunderstandings or mistaken identities or conflicting arrangements and promises and all that good stuff. Usually there is some sort of big action sequence and fight that some of the plot line hinges on at least. And I think it's important to kind of ground your expectations and to make those scenes compelling, to have an understanding of like who's the underdog, who's the favorite, who's really strong, what would an upset be, what would it take, what are the mitigating circumstances, and how are they going to apply. In the end, it is still kind of like a battle shonen too. It really samples the best of both genres. And here, with the introduction of Habose, especially to sit atop the S rank, we really kind of understand where everybody's working from. And moreover, I think this is where we start to revisit characters after their initial arcs. They start to kind of cycle back in for follow-up arcs and bit roles and future arcs, and just kind of coming up with novel permutations and combinations of characters. That's where it gets into that real good sitcom mode, and that's where, the series just starts to really hit its stride and keep rolling. This is one of the few anime that I'm just okay with it going on forever. It's so comfy, it's so funny, it's so lively. I'm never going to be dreading or tired of watching this or whatever. Just do the whole thing and take as long as you need. Alright. Next, let's talk about this series. Wow! Explosion! What the heck is this? It does not look like anime from this decade. And in fact, it kind of isn't. This is the in-universe show in one episode of My Dress Up Darling Season 2. This is another sequel season, another rom-com, and another absolute masterpiece of production. Here, the highlights for me remain these in-universe shows that I talked about. Every time they have an arc where she's cosplaying a different character, we really dive into the source material. It's all in-universe created stuff that's often kind of riffing on and parodying real-world popular series and genres and mediums, but it's totally original. And then they put in so much love across so many genres, across so many types of mediums, to give you like a lot of footage that's just built from the ground up in that mode of all these different fake series. I love it. I love it. The more I see of this series, the more I feel like Dud is kind of like the complete rom-com. It's not my all-time favorite, you know. The ones that I put at the top of my personal rankings are ones that resonate with me really deeply personally, like I can really relate to the characters, or they kind of exemplify things in manga or in anime that I just particularly really like. But I think in terms of just like looking at the stat distribution of all the things that I think a rom-com should nail in all the different kind of genres of rom-com, this is a series that excels in just everything. There is no weak aspects. And it's really quickly becoming one of my favorites too. Like I said, there's other ones that are a little more like special to me, but this is definitely top 10 at least of all-time rom-coms. Maybe it's closing in on top 5. And I just really do feel awed by how much it nails every aspect of the genre, of the genre. You know, kind of combining the best aspects of many different subgenres of rom-com too. We got the exploration of the subject matter, cosplay being very deep, very fascinating. Both the boy and girl leads are just so eminently lovable. The extending cast is charming and memorable. And even the fan service is S-class. Not to sound like a huge pervert, but this is a series that, you know, has quite a bit of fan service and showing skin and scantily clad outfits and stuff. That's something that ties very closely to, you know, the subject matter and themes of the series, which already puts it ahead of the fan service in a lot of other rom-coms, which feels a lot more awkwardly inserted, you know, detracting from the flow of the story, unrealistically convenient or whatever. Which this series actually does have a little bit of at the start, but I think they very wisely eschewed that going forward. So just the integration of it, and then the framing of it, that it's always Marin doing this out of her own self-empowerment, that she wants to be seen as attractive, she wants to flaunt what she's got, she wants to, you know, make Gojo excited and all that good stuff. It's not, you know, fan service moments that come at the cost of her agency, or that are totally accidental or whatever. And I really like that. And you know, and I think this is largely because it's written by a woman that they understand that there's like a big difference between those two things. In terms of like the messaging and the series, what it's actually saying about the characters, and how it respects the characters and stuff. So yeah, even the fan service, they nailed it. It truly is a girls' fantasy rom-com, I think. You know, obviously Marin is an extremely popular character among people who are attracted to women. One of the most popular anime characters in years and years and years. But really, it's very much like written from her perspective. It's about her fantasies of being attractive and being beloved and having a guy that's into you and getting to do your hobby extremely well. And it creates like an authenticity where her character is given the most love because of that. Okay. Next, let's talk about this series. We finally have a break from rom-coms. This is Sanda. This is a first season non-rom-com. And what genre would you even begin to put this in? It's kind of a battle series. I think it's Paru's closest thing to a true battle series. It's also kind of like a Christmas-themed comedy that is all about, you know, like what if we looked at the character of Santa and everything he is reported to be able to do, and kind of think about what that would look like in the real world in all sorts of bizarre ways, and into very, very comedic ends. It's also this kind of strange near apocalyptic mystery where the more you watch or read, the more you realize that they are not in the real world and that they are in quite the dystopia in a lot of ways. It's kind of a Bildungsroman for Sanda, our main character, the story of him becoming an adult, of recognizing his place in the world. It's also a rom-com, I guess. After all, it kind of is. In a very weird way. Is it just all of the above? Some novel genre mismatch? I really kept hyping up in my head how crazy Sando was gonna be. This is a Science Saru show, and Science Saru just had a huge mainstream hit with Dandadan, and it really delighted me to think of all sorts of people that don't typically watch a lot of anime hearing, oh, hey, the Dandadan people have a new show out, we'd better check it out, it's called Sanda, and just getting their little brains destroyed by how weird it was, how filtering, how they wouldn't be able to last an episode or whatever. I got a lot of delight out of imagining that. But watching the anime with my anime club, where most of the people there had not read the manga, I realized that in a lot of ways this is actually pretty accessible. Like, yeah, some very odd things happen. The very premise of it is very strange. But the emotional beats of it and just the quality of the action, especially through Science Saru, the comedy, I think, again, Science Saru's sense of comedic timing and kind of wackiness in depiction comes through here. It all makes sense. It's all very perfectly enjoyable if you don't get hung up on how strange it is. And a lot of it, as I said, is due to the production. Science Saru really, really came through here. An absolute banger. Both hyper stylized and gritty, with, I think, some of the best character acting they've ever done. Just like the way Sanda conveys emotion in both forms, and there's such like bizarre cryptid type characters in this, and just the way they can be so extreme in the character design and then still convey such a range of subtlety and emotions. The very unique action, the battle sequences and action sequences in the series are really unlike anything else. It really perfectly captures Paru's idiosyncratic art. She's truly a mangaka like no other. The daughter of the Baki the Grappler mangaka, inherited much of his own kind of maverick style of making manga. Not inheriting his style per se, but inheriting the determination to make your entirely new style. And when Yuasa said that he was departing Science Saru, that he would no longer be kind of the de facto director of all of their projects, I was a little worried, but ultimately it seems like it opened just as many doors as it closed. It's not, he's still working, and Science Saru is now putting out such a variety of stuff across the spectrum of mainstream to niche, of accessible to inaccessible, and then stuff like this that exists across all points of those spectrums simultaneously. Keep on trucking. Alright, and number 2, have this awesome looking screenshot from one of my favorite episodes of the second season of Panty and Stocking, the new Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt. We close out our list here. The top 2 series are both truly miraculous. This one is fulfilling a troll non-promise from 15 years ago, and making good on this Christmas ruiner in the stupidest, most hilarious way imaginable. Where the previous Panty and Stocking aired in 2010, the final episode airing on Christmas, and having the most ridiculous, absurd middle finger cliffhanger right at the end that you could ever imagine. Everybody spamming on A, that trigger ruined Christmas. And now it's so bizarre the way they tried to, like, kind of both give you a very satisfying conclusion to that quote-unquote twist, that I think actually you know, serves as a perfect reintroduction of the show and this big, epic, spectacular, we're back episode premise and everything. Wow. Also, like, dealing with the twist and integrating it back into the plot in such a stupid way that it just feels like another middle finger. And then, of course, after that, we're just back right into good old panty and stocking shenanigans. Like we never missed a beat. There's no sense of grandeur. There's no sense of being in awe of its own existence. It feels no different than if it was made in 2011, which, of course, it wasn't originally intended to be. We actually saw a panel from the director and main character designer of the new Panty and Stocking at Anime North. It was very, very interesting, very, very fun. We saw all sorts of like beta artwork and character sketches and things that didn't make the final cut. Very, very funny. I'm sure there's like a recording of it somewhere. But basically, yeah, they had been wanting to make it pretty much this whole time, and it just never really worked out. There was no like grand conspiracy against it, nor was there some overwhelming need to do it at any given time. So it just kind of kept bubbling away on the back burner until finally, at last, we're so back. Once again, it's the perfect blend of movie parodies, nonsensical 15-minute long raunchy jokes that are often movie parodies, slice of life shenanigans. I really like the ones that are a lot more down to earth and just about them hanging out in Downtown City and getting into mischief, fairly low stakes. And then, of course, full send action epics like that first episode where they're doing battle with the world at stake, and you get all this crazy superlative action and transformation and all that good stuff. Yeah. I guess I added this after we went to the panel, but there's so many ideas that didn't make it. And they did say they are interested in doing more. Who knows when it'll happen? Maybe it'll be in another 15 years in 2040. But I plan on still watching anime in 2040. So I'll be excited to share it all with you then. And yeah, see, it was good. It was good that I waited so long so that I could talk about this panel. Okay, finally, let's wrap this up and move on to 2026 anime by talking about our number one show, hands down, no contention. Number one's gotta be City the Animation. And a medium full of one-of-one masterpieces, very few compared to Nichijou. It was this very bizarre, very hilarious manga, already kind of a one-of-one manga. Manga, of course, full of even more eccentricity than anime, even more idiosyncratic styles, and just people truly marching to the beat of their own drum. To find such a unique manga, even within manga, and then bring it to life so brilliantly with the full power of KyoAni, one of the most acclaimed and full of talent and passion anime studios ever. And then for 14 years, nothing. we hoped for more because Arawi Sensei's manga continued, and there was so much more Nichijou that we could adapt, and I was reading it and going, oh my gosh, this is so funny. And then City started coming out, and I was reading City, and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. But KyoAni didn't seem interested in revisiting it, and the cynical explanation that, you know, it's kind of the only explanation, is that it just didn't sell very well. And it's true. Nichijou Blu-ray sales were very, very low. Even though it had an extremely loyal cult following at the time, even though some of us were singing its praises from the day episode 1 aired, it never really got a strong foothold, and KyoAni, you know, moved on to many other projects. I think it's interesting because for a while I was sort of annoyed that Nichijou did seem to take on a second life as clip fodder on social media, on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram Reels and all of those other garbage troughs. There were so many Nichijou clips and Nichijou compilations and just shots, super over the top reactions and stuff that the series excelled so much in, being used out of context and GIFs and stuff, even. It really, really took on a life of its own. And I found it kind of frustrating because I'm like, where were you people when the DVDs were on sale, huh? And also, it was clear to me that the number of people sharing these things and watching these things was so far beyond the people that had actually like watched the entire show. And I was like, you are only seeing a sliver. You are only seeing like 5% of the show. And it's a good 5%, and I understand why you're excited, but like, do yourself a favor. Go check out the rest of the series. But, you know, I wonder if some of the stats on those videos and how many times they'd been reshared and how many times they've been watched is partially why KyoAni decided to miraculously go back and adapt City. I really don't know. I think if they're hoping that this would lead to some sort of social media driven wellspring of support and anticipation and purchasing of City, that might be sorely mistaken, because the type of person that is just watching like Nichijou top 10 fights is probably like a lot too stupid to know that a new series is coming out that's essentially like Nichijou 2, and that they should watch it and that they would enjoy it. I think those people are kind of like unreachable if they're watching any actual full length anime. It's like Solo Leveling. We really cannot overstate how unengaged the median anime fan is now. They're gonna watch like maybe something that's at the top of like Crunchyroll recommended, but more likely than not, they are just watching like YouTube clips and being like, "This looks awesome. That's so much aura, bro." So I don't know, and I don't think City was like massively successful. Maybe it will be massively successful in years to come in the world of these clips and reappropriations and YouTube uploads and all that stuff. But I don't know. Will they get fooled for a third time? Will they adapt his third manga in another 15 years? Unfathomably, you know, that I wouldn't have even thought this would be possible, but they managed to go even further beyond Nichijou. It's creating something that's so vibrant, so colorful, so rich with detail and impact and technique and just events. So madcap. There's not only nothing like it, but it is so much unlike any other thing that it feels weird to compare it to even Nichijou. They just really went beyond like what any anime like has looked like. Just the color schemes are unlike anything else I've ever seen in anime. It's one of those anime that becomes truly transcendent. And for some reason, I put a comma here, and then I thought there was one more line, but there isn't. And you know what? Screw it. I waited way too long to make this. And now I feel like there was something I was supposed to say here, and I just totally forgot. But that's it. That is my top 10 anime of 2025. We finally got it done. Look forward to discussion of anime in 2026, which we are, again, over halfway through. How terrifying. Okay, bye.